Good evening. I'm glad you're back, and I'm happy we're going to be able to learn about more interesting Panther variants today. And remember, if you do like what I am doing, please like and subscribe. It helps a lot with the channel. As well, leave a comment if you wish, as it helps with the algorithm. It shows the algorithm that there is engagement with my channel, thus it'll push my videos further. Today, we'll be exploring some of Germany's most fascinating and unique armored vehicles of World War II, focusing on their design, purpose, and a bit of their operational history. From the recovery-focused Bürgerpanther to the specialized variants like the Panzerbefehlswagen and the Panzerbeobachtungswagen, the Flak Panzer 341, and the Ersatz M10. There is a lot to unpack, especially with the Ersatz, of which I'm going to cover a lot about, because not really many people know about it. So let's get into it. As Germany's tanks became larger and more advanced, they also became more challenging to recover when immobilized. Early in the war, the German military relied on lighter vehicles such as the modified Panzer I and Panzer II chassis, along with recovery trucks like the SD-KFZ-9. While these solutions worked adequately for smaller tanks like the Panzer III and the Panzer IV, they struggled with heavier tanks such as the Tigers and Panthers. By 1943, the need for a dedicated, heavily armored recovery vehicle was obvious. The Bürgerpanther was the result. Based on the Panther chassis, it was designed to tow damaged or even disabled vehicles off the battlefield, repair them on site when possible, or recover heavier equipment. The Bürgerpanther retained the Panther's robust Maybach HL230, excellent suspension, and its armor protection, but it replaced the turret with a fixed superstructure that housed a powerful winch capable of pulling up to 40 tons. Additionally, it featured an A-frame crane to lift heavy components like engines or turrets. The Bürgerpanther was fielded on both the eastern and western fronts, with approximately 339 units produced. It was usually assigned to heavier tank battalions or panzer divisions, where it proved invaluable for maintaining the operational readiness of Germany's armored forces. Its advantages over earlier recovery vehicles were significant. It could handle the weight of even the Tiger II, something the SD-KFZ-9 could not effectively do. However, the Bürgerpanther had its downsides. It was a large, conspicuous vehicle, making it an easy target during recovery operations. Additionally, production was limited due to Germany's strained industrial capacity. In combat, the Bürgerpanther's presence on the battlefield often determined whether the German armored units could sustain operations or were forced to abandon valuable tanks. Despite its usefulness, some were lost to enemy fire during recovery missions, though the exact numbers are difficult to confirm. The role of commanders in tank warfare is critical, and Germany recognized the need for specialized vehicles to coordinate their armored units. Before the Panther, the Panzerbefehlswagen series had been built on earlier tanks like the Panzer IIIs and Panzer IVs, as well as even a Tiger P, which I have covered in my Tiger video, and I would recommend you go watch it. These command vehicles were outfitted with additional radio equipment and modifications to support their role. However, as tank technology advanced, so did the need for more capable command platforms, leading to the Panzerbefehlswagen 5, Panther. The Panther was an ideal choice for this role due to its excellent armor, mobility, and firepower. The Panzerbefehlswagen 5 was a base on the standard Panther models, much like the Bürgerpanther, most commonly the Panther Alps A and Panther Alps G, though they were modified to accommodate extra radios and communication equipment. The turret featured external differences, such as reduced armament, typically a dummy gun or a functional gun with limited ammunition within the tank. Internally, the tank had less room for ammunition storage, as space was needed for added radio sets and a map table for the commander. Around 330 Panzerbefehlswagen 5 Panthers were produced and assigned to panzer divisions, where they were placed in key roles for directing operations. These vehicles were equipped with advanced radio systems, including long-range transmitters and receivers, which allowed commanders to coordinate multiple units effectively. They saw action in major battles, including the Eastern Front and during the Normandy campaign. Despite its utility, the Panzerbefehlswagen 5 Panther was not without its limitations. The reduction in firepower and ammunition made it less capable in direct combat, and the reliance on a small number of these vehicles meant they were often targeted by enemy forces. However, their contributions to Germany's armored warfare tactics cannot be understated. To note as well, it's quite easy to tell which panzer is a command panzer or a normal panzer, as with the long-range radio capabilities, Germany would usually add 1 to 2 sets of long-range radio antennas, which stand tall and usually have 3 to 4 prongs sticking out of the end of it. That's how you could tell they were command panzers. Not to mention they'd sit further back, so if an ambush were to happen, as stated with limited numbers within units, mainly 1 or 2, you would knock it out. You're more than likely going to knock out an operation that was ongoing. Artillery has always been a decisive factor in warfare, and accurate spotting is crucial for effective artillery strikes. Throughout World War II, Germany developed a series of spotting vehicles, culminating in the one-off prototype Panzerbeobachtungswagen 5 Panther. This vehicle was designed to provide battlefield commanders with a mobile, armored platform for observing enemy positions and directing artillery fire. It was based on the Panther chassis, but underwent significant modifications. The main gun was replaced with a less powerful weapon, intended primarily for self-defense, while advanced optics and rangefinders were installed to aid in observation and target acquisition. The Panzerbeobachtungswagen 5 never really saw combat ever. It remained a prototype and was captured by Allied forces. Its design highlighted the importance of specialized vehicles in modern warfare, even though it was never mass-produced. Unfortunately, there is little documentation about its ultimate fate. The best way to presume what happened to it, as much with a lot of the prototypes Germany had, it was more than likely either tested and destroyed at firing ranges for tank crews or, ultimately, scrapped. By the later stages of the war, Germany faced devastating air superiority from the Allies, which prompted the development of anti-aircraft tanks. The Flakpanzer 341 was a proposed anti-aircraft vehicle based on the Panther chassis. Its most notable design featured a wooden mock-up turret equipped with a mock-up 37mm Flak-Zwilling cannons. Companies like Rheinmetall Borsig worked on the project, but due to Germany's collapsing industrial capacity and the prioritization of other weapon systems, the Flakpanzer 341 never progressed beyond the concept stages. This highlights the desperate state that Germany was in during the final years of the conflict. Also to note that the Flakpanzer 341 has a lot of misconceptions, a lot of misinformation, and generally there's some terms that are thrown around that are wrong, because you might be talking about this version of the 341 or this version. Sometimes their names get interchanged, and I've cut down a lot of this section because of the fact that there is just a lot to it, and it's better to read about it, in my opinion, because there's so many interesting details that I feel like I could not cover adequately. So, if you do feel like reading more about the Flakpanzer 341 to come up with your own idea about this vehicle, please do so, and let me know what you think about the Flakpanzer 341 in the comments, as I do find it interesting myself. Now, like I said, I was going to unpack quite a bit about the Ersatz M10. Again, not many people know about it, and not many people know what it was meant for. So, this is quite a bit of information on it, and I thank you again for listening so far. Please like and subscribe. The Ersatz M10 Panther is one of the most unusual and ambitious tank projects of World War II. Born out of desperation, as Germany faced the combined Allied advance on the Western Front. By late 1944, the Allies were pushing through France and Belgium, as well as the Netherlands, with superior air power, logistical support, and increasing numbers of tanks like the Shermans, Cromwells, and Churchills. German forces, including the vaunted Panthers and Tigers, were struggling to hold the line. Outnumbered and facing constant supply shortages, recognizing the brute force alone would not turn the tide. German planners turned to deception. The Ersatz M10 was conceived as part of a larger plan during the Ardennes Offensive, also known as the Battle of the Bulge. This offensive was Hitler's last-ditch effort to split the Allied forces and recapture the vital port of Antwerp. To achieve this, the Germans relied heavily on unconventional tactics, including and the use of English-speaking commandos to sow confusion, and vehicles disguised as Allied equipment. The idea behind the Ersatz M10 was to create fake American tank destroyers to infiltrate Allied lines, cause chaos, and ultimately misdirect the enemy. The Panther was chosen as the base for this deception due to its availability and relatively similar size and silhouette to the American M10 Wolverine, a tank destroyer widely used by the US forces. The modifications included welding sheet metal and structural changes to mimic the angular turret of the M10. The Germans also painted these tanks with olive drab green, typical of American vehicles, and even the white stars, the hallmark insignia of US armor. To further sell the illusion, crews were given US uniforms and briefed to behave like American tank crews when encountering Allied forces. Despite these efforts, the Ersatz M10 was far from a convincing replica. While the Germans managed to alter the tank's appearance, the Panther's distinctly German hull and proportions still stood out to trained observers. The M10 Wolverine, for instance, had a much more angular, slab-sided design compared to the Panther. The M10's turret had an open-top design with thin armor, while the Ersatz M10's turret retained the thick armor and enclosed structure of the Panther's original turret. If someone were to look at it from the right angle, would give it away, though there are certain angles the turret probably would help it, as there was add-on armor to an extent to give it that flatter angular look of the M10. Additionally, the Panther's interleaved road wheels and tracks were a dead giveaway. The M10 used a completely different suspension system that was a hallmark of American design. The height of the Ersatz M10 was another noticeable discrepancy. The Panther was taller than the M10, a much lower silhouette designed for ambush tactics. These differences meant that even without thorough scrutiny, the Ersatz M10 could be spotted as a fake by experienced Allied personnel. The Ersatz M10's main gun was also a clue to its true identity. While the real M10 was armed with a 3-inch 76.2mm gun, effective against German tanks, the Ersatz M10 retained the Panther's long-barreled 7.5cm KWK 42L70. This gun, while superior to the M10's in range and armor penetration, looked visibly different and was mounted in a turret design that didn't really match the M10's. In short, to anyone familiar with the silhouette and armament of Allied tank destroyers, the Ersatz M10 appeared as a pretty crude imitation. Only about 10 Panthers were ever converted into Ersatz M10s, and their operational history during the Battle of the Bulge was brief and ineffective. While some of these vehicles managed to move through Allied lines initially, they were quickly identified and either destroyed or captured. One notable engagement occurred when the US forces spotted the Ersatz M10s in a convoy and recognized their unique outlines. The realization that these were imposters led to their swift neutralization, and the deception effort largely unraveled after that. The ruse failed to achieve its intended impact, as it neither sowed chaos among the Allied lines nor significantly disrupted operations. The failure of the Ersatz M10 had a lasting impact for the Allies. First, it was a wake-up call about the potential for enemy deception tactics. Before the incident, the US forces had relatively lax identification procedures, relying heavily on vehicle markings and uniforms to differentiate friend from foe. After the discovery of the ersatz M10s, stricter protocols were implemented to confirm the vehicles and personnel. These included closer scrutiny of the vehicle's silhouettes, suspension, and other design features, which could not be convincingly replicated by the Germans. Additionally, this incident increased the awareness of sabotage and infiltration tactics. Allied troops were warned to be more cautious about seemingly friendly vehicles or unusual behavior. This vigilance contributed to foiling future German attempts at deception, such as the activities of Otto Skorzny's English-speaking commandos during the same offensive. The U.S. Army's response to these tactics strengthened the overall discipline and preparedness of their forces in the field, reducing the effectiveness of smaller strategies in the future. The ersatz M10's failure is emblematic of Germany's desperation in the latter stages of the war. By late 1944, the Wehrmacht was facing overwhelming odds and was forced to resort to increasingly unorthodox methods to achieve tactical advantages. While the concept of using disguised tanks was clever in theory, the execution was hampered by the sheer distinctiveness of the Panther's design and lack of resources to create a convincing replica. The ersatz M10 is a stark reminder of how deception alone cannot compensate for fundamental imbalances in logistics, manpower, and firepower. The plan's failure was not only highlighted in the ingenuity and adaptability of the Allies, but also marked another instance of Germany's inability to bridge the gap between bold ideas and practical implementation. Panther variants have fascinated historians, gamers, and modelers for decades. They've appeared in countless games like War Thunder, World of Tanks, and more, movies like T-34, and documentaries, as well as surviving examples that can be found in museums worldwide, serving as testament to the ingenuity and desperation of wartime engineering. Thank you all so much for watching. It means a lot. Please remember, if you do like what I'm doing, it would help a lot if you liked and subscribed, commented, and shared. Thank you again, and goodbye.